Mr. Dinwar Bernard, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Professor Fritz Pinnock, President of the Caribbean Maritime University. Deputy to the President, Professor Ibrahim Ajaguna. Dr. Grace McLean, Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Erica Simmons, Executive Director for the Dr. Andrew Wheatley Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing. Executives in the agencies of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. All regional directors and other directors of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. All vice presidents, associate vice presidents, executive directors, directors, deans, and managers of the Caribbean Maritime University, principals, vice principals, aspiring principals, teachers, students, and staff members from the National College for Educational Leadership, and those joining us remotely. Good afternoon. It is indeed a privilege and a pleasure to welcome you to the 6th webinar in the National College for Educational Leadership Development webinar series. The college is pleased to have our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Grace McLean, and Ms. Erica Simmons, Executive Director of the Dr. Andrew Wheatley Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing, delivering this webinar titled Preparing for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, How Jamaica Gets Ready. Indeed, we are living in a fast-paced economy, and we need to be seeking ways to rapidly accelerate educational progress so that all young people can develop the skills they need to function in this fast-changing world. And so it is timely that we're having a webinar of this nature. At this time, our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Dinwar Bernard, will introduce Dr. Grace McLean. Thank you.
Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, our host principal director for the National College for Educational Leadership. Let me recognize the esteemed members of our congregation today, or our audience. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. I just want to first regard our host, Professor Fritz Pinnock, President, Caribbean Maritime University. His deputy, Professor Ibrahim Ajanguna. Did I do well? I did well, Prof? I hope I did. Certainly you'd have recognized one of the persons why we are here today, Dr. Grace McLean, our Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Erica Simmons, Executive Director for the Dr. Andrew Wheatley Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing. I want to recognize also the executives from our executive management team, the most hardworking team in Jamaica. Recognizing also executives in our agencies, hardworking as well, certainly. Our regional directors and other directors present. We have vice presidents, and I see Dr. Cornwell looking at me. Dr. Cornwell, welcome. And associate vice presidents, associate professors, other executive directors, directors, deans, managers, staff of the Caribbean Maritime University. We have principals, other presidents, vice principals, aspiring principals, teachers, students, and staff members. from NCEL and from other agencies. Those who are joining us on our live feed, I just want to bring you greetings and say a special good afternoon to you. The MOEII is about creating world-class educational leaders. One such, ladies and gentlemen, is our own star in education, Dr. Grace McLean. Grace McLean joined the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in July 2009, where she served as Deputy Chief Education Officer. And she was shortly promoted to the post of Chief Education Officer. I know that it was short because when I came in 2010, I came and saw her as CEO. So that means she would not have been long as a DCO. She's a graduate, proud graduate, I may say, of the Edwin Allen Comprehensive High School in Clarendon. She's a trained teacher and a human resource practitioner. She taught at St. Jago High School for 5 years, where she served as HOD before joining the Central Ministry. She also served at Arch Trust NTA for 40 years, and she left Art in the capacity of Senior Programs Director. Dr. McLean, who was a doctorate in philosophy, in career and technical vocational education, she holds a Master's of Business Administration in Human Resource Management from the University of West Indies, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Education from the University of Technology. And she also has been trained at the Harvard Business School and in her training there in strategic data management. Her wealth of experience and technical skills include TVET leadership, strategic planning, disruptive innovation, log frame planning, and balanced scorecard methodologies, change management, strategic data planning, business process improvement, as well as behavioral interview technique. And ladies and gentlemen, you can understand why the setting is here. Because all of this that we are speaking about these are the cutting edge technologies that are being experienced right here at CMU. Dr. McLean has served and continues to serve on several boards. And she served on the most powerful board in the country, which is the HEART board. Ain't no board as powerful as that one. She has served on committees in various areas in the country. She serves and represents Jamaica on a regular basis at regional and international meetings where she serves on committees. And I can just name that she's a staple name at the Caribbean Examination Council, where her work is highly regarded. She's regularly involved in public speaking. She responds to various educational issues in the media and aims to continuously improve the education system. I said that the school challenge quiz persons are still to get it right when the question as to who is the permanent secretary is asked. They are yet to say D-Roy and Bernard. It is always Grace McLean. So I remain incognito. So Grace McLean has been lending her expertise on many boards and committees, as said, and she also serves as an expert in technical education and training. And she provides guidance locally, regionally, and internationally on various TVET issues, concepts, and principles. But she would want me to also tell you that she is the wife of one husband. And she has 2 children, son Orville and a daughter Veronica. And one grandson since last week. So she's a proud grandma. Yes, Dr. McLean, I will catch you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this iconic Jamaican is a go-getter and a consummate professional. We all listen we are all listening with bated breath this afternoon to hear a presentation as we look to be transformed to iHats. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Dr. Grace McLean.
Thank you so much, P.S. Bernard. And now we will have Dr. Winston Adams, President of the University College of the Caribbean, introducing Mrs. Erica Simmons.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The pleasure is mine to introduce Mrs. Erica Simmons, Executive Director of the Dr. Andrew Wheatley Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing here at CMU. Erica Simmons is the Executive Director of the Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing at the CMU in Kingston. Our Center of Excellence is leading the way in the Caribbean in research related to hybrid manufacturing using additive manufacturing materials and methods. Our experiences were gained from a successful 15-year career at Siemens AG's Digital Factory Division, where she was responsible for industry positioning and packaging of technical software solutions for product life cycle management, including CAD, CAM, and CAE, and digital manufacturing itself. She holds 2 patents related to using software to simulate industrial environments. Born in Jamaica, Mrs. Simmons, yes, spent her teen years in the USA and went to college in Texas, where she attained degrees in sociology and small business operations from the University of North Texas and the University of Texas Red McComb School of Business, respectively. Mrs. Simmons brings her technical and creative talents, as well as her vast global network, to lead and launch the Andrew Wheatley Center for Digital Innovation and Advanced Manufacturing at the CMU, the region's foremost research and development center for simulation, modeling, and digital manufacturing technology. So indeed, it's my pleasure, again, to welcome Mrs. Simmons to address us this afternoon as part of our webinar, along with Dr. Grace McLean. Thank you.
Permanent Secretary, Mr. Dean Roy Bernard, Professor Fritz Spinock, President of the Caribbean Maritime University, Mrs. Erica Simmons, my co-presenter this afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I have to go home this evening, so I have to recognize Mr. McLean, Aaron McLean, my husband. And I also want to specially recognize Mr. Nathan Barton. Nathan, will you please stand, sir? It's a pleasure having you, sir, in Jamaica. Nathan is actually from New Jersey. And when my son, whose son I am now grandmother of, completed his education here and went overseas, got married, Nathan offered him a job. And so he's working more money than Aaron and I put together in the oil industry, where he started out as an apprentice. So I am grateful for the support that you would have provided for another Jamaican. And so I must recognize you especially because you did it for my son, who never attended CMU, but I know you have been doing it for many students at this institution as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here this afternoon to make this presentation on preparing for the 4th Industrial Revolution. I started my research in 2014 when I was completing my PhD, And there was the last chapter that I had to do on the way forward. And I presented one main area that I wanted us to focus on later, or somebody else to do that research, which was STEM. Now, having had that in the research, I was actually charged by my team of supervisors to ensure that the research continues. And so over time, since 2014, I have been engaging with Professor Pinnock as it relates to what is going to be next in the world, not only in Jamaica, but in the world. And last year, December, Professor Pinnock brought me a document, a hard copy document. By the way, I found my copy, Professor. We were at a heart retreat last December, and he gave each person a copy, and he said, it is very important that you read this document, because this document is going to be changing the face of this earth, and Jamaica cannot be left behind. I read the document. It was about 15 or so pages, so it wasn't very long. And following that, I wrote to Dr. Ingleton to indicate to her that we needed to do a presentation on the fourth industrial revolution. Our minister is not here this afternoon, but he started to talk about the fourth industrial revolution and artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things and so on. And so we had to intensify our research and, of course, started to prepare ourselves for what is to come. And so, ladies and gentlemen, having had the discussion and having spoken to Professor Pinnock and heard that he would have been off the island last week, well, he's actually here, thank God, but he introduced me to an angel who is from the industry in the form of Grace Simmons, who is not an educator but a practitioner in the field. And so I am able to put forward the education perspective while she's able to put forward the industrial perspective, so that we can all leave here this afternoon being fully rounded as it relates to what this fourth industrial revolution is all about. So the fourth industrial revolution, ladies and gentlemen, when we hear about this, we are speaking about a technological revolution. This technological revolution is one of a different kind. It's not the ordinary technological revolution. Now, many of us would have grown up in an era where we have been hearing about different revolution. It doesn't come, I think it perhaps come anywhere between 50 and 70 years, Erica, around about that time. And we are now at the fourth industrial revolution. So if you can see the slide, we had the first industrial revolution, which started in about 1780, and I think it ended about 1840. That started in Great Britain, and it was actually the transition from handmade production. So prior to that, you would have had large groups of men who would be in the farm, tilling the soil or making things using their hands. And so it was a transition from using your hands or our hands to do things, to make things, to the use of machines, and of course with the help of water and steam power. And so it started in Britain. It made Britain one of the most powerful countries in the world. And the first industrial revolution actually had created quite a bit of jobs in the textile industry. And that is when I believe Britain actually exported to countries all over the world as it relates to textiles as well as the associated products. And so that is where it started, with machines being created, developed, and these machines actually use steam and water and, of course, different kinds of mechanical tools to increase production across the world. So that was the first industrial revolution. The second industrial revolution, so that started up in the 1870s or round about that time. And incidentally, this is known as the technological innovation or the technological revolution. And so in this phase, we had the coming together of some systems. So telegraph became very popular, so we could get a telegram from England or the US or anywhere across the world. Even in Jamaica, a telegram would be sent, and there is some technology that would have been utilized for that. Our railroads became very, very popular, where you had trains that were plying long routes with cargo and goods. Of course, that made it easier to get to the customers. And there was also the unprecedented movement of people. So people were able to take the train or take the boat and go to other places to work and return home. And that's where the actual rural-urban drift started as this revolution was being implemented. And so here we had massive assembly lines. So you had mass production. So there were things that were produced in great numbers and, of course, would have been exported to countries all over the world. Then there came the third industrial revolution, which actually we are now evolving from into the fourth industrial revolution. And this is where digital started to take over. So manufacturing became even much easier. We move into the era of not mass production, but mass customization. So it means that items are produced that will suit Dr. Gordon, that will suit Casey, that will suit Maureen, and we all feel happy about what we have. CNC machining, 3D printer, solving problems by the computer, that's the era that we are currently in now and revolving from. So, for example, a simple example on Kingston Wharf, there were days when the persons in charge would have to, if a machine should go down in the night and there are ships that are coming in, they would have to call them, wake them up to come to the factory to see what is happening in terms of the systems. Those days are gone. Now they have a computer programming on their mobile phones that they can just do the review, do the analysis, and they can fix the machine right from home. You can have someone who is out in some very far places, and all they have to do is just to go into a particular program and find the solutions. So that's where technology is now. Even the cars that we drive, you do no longer have to go to a mechanic and the mechanic is trying a thing to see how they can fix it, if it is the brake or the disc pad or whatever. They have now these little tools, these diagnostic scan tools, and they put in the information, the make of the car, the model of the car, and what exactly is wrong with the car, and you are able to find what exactly is wrong and fix it right away. So, of course, this digital era would have seen us really making a number of those manual jobs, especially locally in a developing country like Jamaica, obsolete as we move into the technological era. And ladies and gentlemen, if that was going to be it, we are now on the fourth industrial revolution. And this is known as the digital connected world. And it's interesting because Mrs. Ralston indicated to me today when we made a point in our divisional meeting that the world is becoming a very small ball where everything is connected. So while computer systems, everything is in place, we are able to diagnose, we are able to solve problems easier, we are now moving into that other era, which is where every single thing is connected. So there is no barrier between what is happening here and thousands of miles away. Just on the weekend, PS, our minister I thought I would have gotten a break between Saturday evening and Sunday morning, and I'm sure you thought the same thing too. And minister was communicating directly with us right through, and I'm saying, but minister should be on the flight now from Turkey, and he wouldn't have any internet to be connecting with us so freely. But that wasn't it. He communicated with us straight until he got back to Jamaica. So everything is coming together, and this is what we are now calling the digital connected world. So ladies and gentlemen, a little scary, but it is what it is. And so we now have to just embrace what is currently taking place. And so there are some definitions that I just want to put on the table. Of course, the presentation will be available so that you can have these to review in your own time. The first one speaks to massive transformative purpose. And this is where there is all over the world what we have are persons who are innovating and creative to ensure that we are transforming. We are not transacting, but we are doing things that will transform how we do things. And I'll explain that to you a little later. Exponential technologies. So technology is accelerating sharply. Major industries, their face and their shape, everything about them is being changed. In the twinkle of an eye, you can be, these days we know the mobile phones. I got an S8, and before the next day it was S8 Plus, and then it was S8 Note, and then maybe another week after there is S9, and perhaps maybe tomorrow there will be S10 and something else. So things are moving exponentially. Things are no longer moving incrementally, as we love to say in education, incremental change. Things are moving exponentially, and that speaks to what is happening for the fourth industrial revolution. So there is exponential growth. The power and speed seem to be doubling each year. You have 2G, then 3G, then 4G. I believe they are now at 5G. And so things are getting much faster. And so the rate of change is almost as we think. That's what is taking place. And so there is also exponential mindset, because there are problems which perhaps we may believe that we cannot solve. But there are persons who are innovating and creating, and there are innovative ways of thinking, and anything that you can think about, it is almost like it can be changed rapidly. And so there's a term that is called moonshot, and that is aim at changing something 10 times better. It's not incrementally, gradually doing a little thing here and there. It is changing things 10 times better than it was before. And of course, that is what our young people just caught on to as soon as that is completed. And so there are also the 6 Ds, which I want to just speak to you. Everything is digitized. Everything is connected. Once things become digitized, they're a part of what is now called information science, and it can be used in many different ways. Exponential growth is hard to spot, so it becomes deceptive. You don't know what's going on. Sometimes you have your telephone using, and a change, there's an update, and you did not have to do anything at all to the mobile phone. I'm saying that the phone is so smart that it can record a message and send it to somebody on the phone. And of course, my daughter says I would have touched something, but I didn't touch anything. I had it in my handbag. But it is so deceptive that it is almost as if it can read your mind, and that is what exponential growth is. It is also disruptive. Disruptive, we speak about disruptive innovation. What it means is that things just easily become obsolete. And so it is turning over the entire apple cart and doing something that is so revolutionary that it is inconceivable. Then there is dematerialized. And this is talking about how we have moved from the very big cell phone, that mobile phone that we used to guard, the fridge that they call it, to just small sensors that can be utilized to do so many things that are even more powerful than what those could have done before. I've looked at how even our wireless headsets have changed significantly, where there's just a little thing that you can have anywhere on you and you're able to hear quite well without having to have this whole big piece of instrument on you. So things are becoming much smaller. And then there is, of course, demonetized. And when you speak about GPS systems, Serpy and ourselves were somewhere overseas, and the GPS system is so smart that Professor Pinnock said something to the GPS, and the GPS said, "What you need is a lot of love." What you need is a lot of love and a good phone. I think it is Siri, Professor. So he was telling Siri to find somewhere, and he was rude to Siri, Nathan, and Siri told him that what you need is a lot of love and a good phone. And we were so amazed, because that's what is happening now. So there are high-resolution cameras. There are things that just respond immediately to whatever needs you have. That is the era that we are currently in. Then there is democratized, where products, services, and informations that once belonged to wealthy countries, that's readily available to everybody. So whether you have an S8 or you have a little not a banger, a little $12,000 phone, you are able to access the same information once you can get onto Wi-Fi. So even if your high-tech phone will be able for you to tap into, let's say, the Fortune 500 companies and see how they are progressing. The one with the little phone can do the same thing. It means that the little man on the street who doesn't have a business can do the same thing. And that would have resulted even in some of our young people going into scamming and those other things that they do, because information is readily available. So it's almost like the world is in a hurry. And the developers, the innovators, they have to be constantly working to ensure that they catch up with what is going to be coming next by another supplier. Now, the fourth industrial revolution. There are 6 areas that I want to speak to you briefly about. Artificial intelligence, and this is one of the 6 areas. This makes it possible for machines to learn from experiences. So there are machines that are simulating how we behave, how we speak, what we do. And this experience is actually cued into a machine, and it is adjusted so that it can perform human activities. So in the medical field, you have robots in some hospitals that are actually providing support for patients. And they are so intelligent, they can say, how are you feeling today? Would you like some water? All of these things can be done, and they are robots. So this artificial intelligence allows for persons using different kinds of technology, drones, for example, and track what is happening and to utilize that to serve. And that is why it is said that a lot of those jobs in the middle income bracket are going to be vanishing very soon in the 4th industrial revolution. Robotics, of course. That's, of course, in engineering, which Erica will talk about. And this involves the design, conception, and manufacturing of these robots that assist in terms of the data and the artificial intelligence that I spoke about. 3D manufacturing, or they call it additive manufacturing as well. And this is really ensuring that an object is created using a digital file, and then you press a button, and it is able to print whatever you would have created based on the specifications, using the manufacturing industry, using hospitals, and so on. Then there is, of course, the Internet of Things first. And this is quite interesting, because what this means is that it is connecting, it's a network of different devices. So you're connecting vehicles, homes, appliances, and other electronics to support holistically. So for example, some of you may be sitting here and you are able to turn off your lights at home, or you're able to see what the children are doing. Prior to now, we'd have to be hustling on the bus or driving so fast to see what they're up to when they get home from school. We no longer have to do that, because all the devices are connected to provide us with the information that we require. Of course, biotechnology, on the other hand, where living systems and organisms can now be used through the technology to develop diagnostic tools and to create medication that's used in that industry so that people can live longer and we can get better faster. Then there is, of course, the great blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is going to bring everything together. Blockchain technology will allow several of us from all over the world to be working on documents and not distorting the first or the second or the third, and ensuring that all the information is captured and the information is utilized for the specific purposes. Blockchain technology, for example, within the examination arena, will allow for CXC to be able to have enough bandwidth in a sense, so that you do not have traffic to access examination results. So blockchain technology is able to track, as it were, the traffic. So pretend that you're in halfway tree, in the middle of halfway tree, and all the vehicles are coming to each other and the stoplight's not working. Blockchain technology will allow for there to be easy flow through. All lights are working, all children can access without any gaps or hitch. And this is relatively, as a matter of fact, this is perhaps the newest. And so it is being used, the law industry is using it, where if there's a case file and there's a group of lawyers, several of them can work on the file to get the information. The stock industry is using it, and they are using it to do whatever permutations they need to do without interfering into somebody else's work, and to make sure that they can earn accordingly. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the future. This is it as it relates to what this fourth industrial revolution is going to be, where we connected, all systems are connected. And so I know Dr. Gordon will be pleased with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because when these goals were developed, and I won't bother to go through all of them because it's available online, this was with a mind that there is a fourth industrial revolution that is going to be upon us. So you look at tracking poverty, for example. How do we use the systems that can ensure that we can provide for those in other areas that really need the support? How do we use artificial intelligence to do the diagnosis and to decide what medication that is required? All the areas, microfinance, how we use this to create smart and green cities, so that we do not have to continue with the emissions that come from our cars, ladies and gentlemen. So this is what is upon us, and I will now invite Erica, who is going to take us through the main part of the presentation relating to the industry perspective. Then I will come with the implications for education.
Okay, good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, I want to say salutations to Mr. Dean Roy Bernard, our permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Information, our beloved Professor Fritz Pinnock, the president of the Caribbean Maritime University, his deputy, Professor Ibrahim Ajaguna, Dr. Grace McLean, our chief education officer in the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Information, Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, the Director Principal of the National College for Education Leadership, the executives in the agencies of the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Information, regional directors and other officers in the ministry, all vice presidents, associate vice presidents, executive directors, directors, deans, managers, and the staff of the Caribbean Maritime University, welcome. Principals, vice principals, aspiring principals, teachers, students, and staff members from NCEL, and those joining us from the web, welcome, welcome. The gentleman would have introduced me and said that I had a background in sociology, right? And it could not have been a better time for me to be alive and to be a sociologist than during this time of technological advancement, where it's really going to be affecting our society. And I really love to zero in on this term called singularity, because I think it's something that we need to keep top of mind. And in the tech sector, where I worked for 25 years, this concept of singularity actually is when the machines and the robots will be smarter than humans. And it's a time of inflection that we have to start thinking about, right? So when the machines and robots become smarter than us, can make decisions, what does that mean for the future of humankind? So as a sociologist and someone who is concerned with the social development of our people and our island, I think it's something that we should be putting at the top of our minds. And Mr. Ray Kurzweil is one of the great thinkers in this term called singularity. He is a professor from MIT, and he's done a lot of work in this area. So singularity is something that we are going to definitely have to be thinking about, and I'll tell you when they have predicted this to happen. So as Dr. McLean said, disruptive technologies are happening in the world. Can we hear anything right now? If we're very quiet, do we hear anything? Probably not. But just because you can't hear it here, we might not see it here on our island, doesn't mean that it isn't happening out there in the world. And it doesn't mean that we cannot prepare for it. We know that the global economy is on the cusp of some dramatic changes. And for us here in Jamaica, I think of it as actually a great opportunity for us, because we know that technology is really the great equalizer. Every 50 to 60 years, there are some changes and shifts in industry that happen. And we're right at the point where the window is cracked slightly. So the window to a developing nation on the other side, you're on one side, the other side is where we are today. And so in order for us to get through that window before it closes, because your window of opportunity, as they say proverbially, closes, we've got to start preparing ourselves. And the fourth industrial revolution is here. It's in the world. We might not hear it here in Jamaica, but we have to start preparing for it. This revolution will be marked by nonlinear growth. Dr. Grace just talked about exponential growth. That's what we're predicting. And the experts are predicting as well that this will lead to that concept of singularity that we just talked about. The fourth industrial revolution, this term, Industry 4.0, was actually coined by Professor Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum about 5 years ago. And this is probably the paper, perhaps, that Fritz had asked everybody to read. It's a well-known paper. And it is really marked by extreme automation and connectivity in the factory. So things like costs, things like visibility into your operations will come into better view for everybody. And it's really marked by this period of what they're calling cyber-physical systems. So the combination of humans and robots. And at some point, that's going to come together. And as they're saying, the robots are going to overtake our human existence and things that we're doing. So we've got to prepare for that. It's also called the second age of the machine. Remember, the third industrial revolution was probably the first age of the machine, right? So smart machines. Every machine, everything being a small computer, right? So in the future, maybe even this clicker will become very smart that I don't even have to click it. Maybe I can just think about it and it clicks itself, right? Evidence is going to be everywhere, so it's going to actually impact every facet of our society and the world that we know today. And think about this. 80% of companies and jobs will need to change or they will be obsoleted. So it's very, very important that we understand that change is coming and we don't necessarily have to put our heads in the sand. We can prepare for this change that's coming. So let's just look at the impact of AI. And I'm going to focus on AI a little bit, artificial intelligence, because I think this is actually the foundation of changes that are happening and the foundation that will impact all of those those 6 areas that Dr. McLean just talked about. Okay, so I just talked about from an economic, cultural, social perspective, there's going to be endless disruption. I mean, we've already seen the disruption happening today with the smartphones. We've already seen the disruption happening today with driverless cars, so it's coming. McKinsey, a well-known think tank, says that 58% of the jobs that we have today will be automated. So I was talking to Dr. McLean the other day and I said, well, think about the lowest skilled workers that we have in our society. Say people working in a factory that may be moving product from one side of the factory to the other. Those jobs are going to go away and robots are going to take over those jobs, right? So the lowest skilled jobs in our society will be the ones at risk. So what do we have to do? We've got to think about how do we transform the people who we classify as the lowest skilled workers in our society and at least try to bring them up one notch so that they're not on the lowest scale anymore. They still have skills to be able to participate in this global economy that's happening. Then what we have to do is to think about the ethical implications of what's going to happen, right? This guy, Martin Ford, talked about the rise of the robots, so the robots will obsolete all of our jobs and put us out of business. And Elon Musk and the rest of the guys have actually thought about the ethical implications of AI. And if, in the future, artificial intelligence will represent an existential threat to mankind. So, you know, they're talking about weaponizing of AI, creating robots and weapon systems guided by artificial intelligence. So as a world, as a society, as a planet, we're going to actually have some very hard thoughts about where we want to be in the future and how we want to use this technology. Are we going to use it for good, or will it be used for bad? So let's just look a little bit of some of the technologies that Dr. Grace kind of outlined and see what's happening in each of the industry sectors a little bit. So we've got AI, we've got AR, which is augmented reality. We have the blockchain, we have drones, the Internet of Things, robots, virtual reality, and 3D printing. And I won't go through all of these, but let's look at some. So in the industrial area, which is where we're focused at here at the university and at the Center of Excellence, we're looking at things like 3D printed parts and connected vehicles and how that affects the factory. I think it's over here. Let me see if this works. Right here. So what we saw happening about a year ago is that the top big manufacturers in the world, the Siemens, the GE, they started to create these large industrial factories that just had 3D printers in there. So they are going to the thought process that products in the future may not be assembled anymore. They're not a collection of parts. And what we can do with these big industrial printers is to create one complete part from the ground up, one system. So they have built these factories. You're going to see a lot of machines now, a lot of new parts coming out in the future that will be made out of thermoplastics. It'll be made out of metals that are printed in these new types of factories. I call them the factory of the future. And some of you guys had a chance to come over and see the factory, a miniature version of the factory of the future over in our center, which we have. Another important concept that my team and I were talking about is the blockchain, as Dr. Grace said, and we were thinking about if we could use the blockchain for things like sharing transcripts, right? So the blockchain can manage contractual relationships between people. So could we use it to share transcripts? Could we use it to be able to handle transactions of a contractual basis? So that's one area. In the healthcare sector, and we'll show this a little bit, all of the things with robots during surgery, right? And Dr. Grace talked about this concept of these robots helping in the hospital. There's a term for these robots, and we're studying them in our center as well. They're called cobots. And cobots are robots that are going to work alongside humans. So there's a lot of implications that have to happen when you have robots operating in the same environment. Those of you that may have known about the factory floor at one time, remember robots were caged. We didn't let them out of the cage for safety reasons. They were locked up in a cage and did their work in a cage. You know, we were afraid that they were going to hurt us. But now they're engineering robots that can work right alongside with you. I was at a seminar recently, and they had some cobots up on the stage, and you could walk towards them and they could move out of your way. They knew that you were coming, right? Or you could talk to them. They had little LCDs, and you could see their face. When you walked up to them, they could recognize who you are. So this is more of what I see coming in the near future, of these robots working alongside humans in the factory. So when you think about that, the skill sets of people that are working in the factory are going to have to change so that we can be able to relate to these robots. We can program the robots. We can troubleshoot the robots, right? So there's specialized skills that we are definitely going to have to acquire to be able to operate in this new dimension. So hyper time compression. You know, when I worked in industry, time was the enemy of the man. We tried to work very, very hard. We tried to implement software solutions and tools that would help the manufacturers speed up the pace at which they were manufacturing things. And exponential automation, this concept of sensor technology. So some of you all may have went over to our Festo Fax Center and saw that nice machinery over there. Well, those machines are all connected. They're all talking to each other via sensors. They're able to know how much power they're getting. They're able to know if they're sick. They can notify us if something's going wrong. So right now we have about, there'll be 26 billion sensors that will be deployed on machines. And any machine that's being manufactured today from a manufacturing perspective will definitely have these sensors on them, and they'll be very intelligent machines. And then there's this concept of the AI of everything, this mesh. This is what they say will bring on this concept of singularity, where they say it's going to be an inflection point for us. You know, who's going to be in charge in the future? Is it going to be the robot or is it going to be the man? Now, this is a chart that I put up because I wanted to show you a little bit. I know it's not clear, but I wanted to show you that in about 2025, which is less than 10 years from now, robots will be able, the computing power of computers will be equal to the human brain. And when that happens, supposedly, right, that is the beginning of that term of the age of the smart machine and the age of singularity. So it's not that far in the future. In fact, just this weekend, let me see if this slide's in here. I don't know if we got it in here. No, we can get to this in a minute, but just this weekend on Friday, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in the US just released the Summit. And the Summit is the fastest supercomputer in the world. It's overtaken the Japanese and the Swiss in terms of the fastest computer. So it can compute billions and billions and billions of pieces of information a second. So when you think about AI and robots needing information to learn, because it's a self-learning system, right? We need information to learn. Think about these fast machines and enabling people to be, enabling them to compute and recompute at billions of bytes of information a second. And it's called the Summit. It's made out of about 4,500 IBM servers. It's got like 10 petabytes of memory. So now this machine will help to train the robots that are the systems, the artificial intelligence systems that are in place today. So the fastest supercomputer in the world has just been introduced in the US this past Friday. Okay, so all this is kind of scary, I guess, huh? Like, what do we do? We don't have to put our head in the sand. I got an idea about what we could potentially do to help and to make sure that we're a part of this. Digital literacy will have to be something that will be front and center for our ministry. We're going to have to make sure that we have early learning with computer science education from the primary level, secondary level, and tertiary level. Really, every child in every form that we have in high school or in primary school should definitely be learning computer science. We should be taking it as a class every single year, right? It is. Computers form the basis of all these systems, right? When we talk about innovation in robotics, we talk about innovation in autonomous vehicles, it's all driven by the software. It's all driven by programming. And unless we have that competence for that, we're going to miss this revolution and we're not going to be able to contribute. We're going to be consumers of other technologies that other countries have created. And you know, I traveled all over the world with my job at Siemens. I went great places all over the world, met wonderful, wonderful people. And I kept coming back to the fact that In my home country of Jamaica, I just think that we're the smartest people on the planet. I mean, I'm biased, I guess. We're smart, we're talented, we're innovative. I don't know if maybe it's because of our state, and when you don't have a lot, you have to be very creative with what you do. But what if we join the creativity that is inborn with us, with the technology that's out in the marketplace today, and we can come and we can create, and we create products and new materials and new methods that we can share with the world. You know, that's the future, that's the opportunity, actually, that we have in front of us, right? Technology is the great equalizer, and why can't we use it to create economic development for our country, to start with our greatest asset that we have, which is our human capital right here in Jamaica. So, computer science, we're going to have to change the way our thinking. We're going to have to get teachers that can teach us about computer science, right? And I wanted to call your attention. There is a lot of frameworks out there already. We don't have to start from scratch. There's people already out here thinking about this. All we have to do is to make sure that we are leveraging with the work that they've already done. There's a really interesting group here called the Advanced Distributed Learning Center. It is an agency of the U.S. federal government, the military, and what they do is they're studying all about education and adult education and how to teach people using the latest technologies. And they've come up with this framework for learning computer science. And if we could think about adopting this and integrating this into our classes, we would help our students, we'll help our children. So let's look at some of the framework. So they've got these core concepts. So here are the core concepts here. So if we start to teach our kids about computing systems, right? The ins and outs of computing systems. We start to teach about networks and the internet, right? The internet and networks are the framework, the foundation, right? We got to have 4G, and we've got to have all this baseline information, and that's found in the networks and the internet. Then once we have that foundation, we need to look at data and analytics and how we analyze information, because we're going to be taking on a lot of information. Remember I said the sensors are going to be around, data is going to be created, we are going to be collecting a lot of information. Well, we're going to need data scientists and those people to be able to sift through all of that information to come up with meaningful insights. We got to teach our kids about algorithms and programming. Okay, how do we do that in a meaningful way? We can teach them coding. You know, you can start coding from the primary school level, teaching the kids about the blocks needed for coding in fun ways. Lego education, you know, everybody knows about Lego. They have great exercises for coding using their toys. And we can teach the kids how to start doing that in kindergarten using those types of technologies. And then the one that I like so much as a sociologist is thinking about the impacts, the ethical implications of the technology, and how do we protect ourselves from rogues and people that want to use the technology for harm instead of good. So I love this framework. We can utilize hybrid ways of learning as well, because you know we're going to have to take a little bit to kind of transform the teachers, our education system, but we can tap into this stuff maybe using online learning. There are tons of computer science teachers and people that would help us. We can use distance learning perhaps to bring those people to the country. Maybe they don't have to be physically here, they might not have to be Jamaicans, but we can tap into that breadth of computer science education and those educators globally using things like online learning. And this framework was actually developed by the K-12 Computer Science Association, which is a think tank organization that came up with the framework. So on the data science side, I wanted to share with you some skill sets so we can kind of think. So we talked about, remember data science was one of those, remember it's number 3, data and analysis. Let's look at the type of skills that's required to have a data science. So at the basic level, they're going to have some technical skills, right? They're going to have to know how to do coding. They're going to have to know coding language. Right now, languages like Python and things are really easy for the kids to use. They're gonna have to know how to handle data and information, and actually the security and data of information as well. They're gonna have to know how to use computational tools. They're gonna have to know about the basis of software development, big data, the high performance computing. Remember I just told you about the Summit system? They're gonna have to know all about that, and parallel computing, because this is all the workhorse to get the data and information. So we're gonna need somebody that's tech savvy. That's the very first thing that we'll need. Next, they're gonna have to have excellent analytical skills, all right? They're gonna have to have advanced statistics. See, this is all math, this is all stuff we're teaching, but it's applied to a specific skill set that we need to develop. Modeling and simulation. This is all of what we do in our center: computer-aided design, computer-aided simulation, machine learning, right? In order for the machines to get smarter, they're gonna have to learn, and they're gonna have to be given access to information. Advanced math, data visualization, experimental design, research. So these are the scientific problem-solving skills that our students will need. And then, of course, you know, you can be a technical person and you can be an analytical person, but you have to have the business side of you. If you're going to compete and if you're going to create solutions that people are going to pay money for, we got to be great business people. And for that, we're going to need people that can do value analysis and be able to quantify the value of the tools and the solution. We got to have people that have great project management skills, because these are all big projects, so you got to be able to push those forward. Business processes, change, so massive change, and those of you that are change management people know that change is probably the very hardest, so we're going to have to talk and teach our children how to do change management. And then we are going to have them be leaders, which I know are inborn skills that we have. So they're gonna have to have an appetite for solving business problems and for providing solutions. So this is just an example. So everybody that is, you know, if you're looking to create this type of person for this job in the future, these are all the requisite skills that they have to have. And so I guess the challenge is thinking for us to think about, how do we implement this? How do we begin? How do we start to put some of these things in place and to integrate them into the courseware that we have today? Maybe we don't need to replace what we have, but maybe we can leverage what we have and make it better. Okay, where to find more resources? Here's some resources for you to look at. I wanted to show you that Google is a big supporter of this. And in the classes that my children attend in Texas, they use Google Classroom. Their teachers use Google Classroom to run their class. We submit assignments through Google Classroom. We take tests through Google Classroom. And Google Classroom is a really collaborative environment that allows you to actually participate, not when you're in the room with people, but you can participate at home. Any place that you find a chance to do the homework, you'll have the complete environment with all the information. So let's look at some guiding principles. So we need to broaden the participation in computer science. So we gotta think hard about how we're gonna do that. Are we going to get new computer science teachers? Are we going to leverage teachers that are already out there using distance learning and other hybrid learning methods to get at the experts? Focus on the essential, right? I mean, there's some basic blocking and tackling that we have to do in learning that we still have to do. People need to learn math. They're gonna need statistics. But why can't we couch it in this kind of environment so that they know that when they're learning these tools, it's for a purpose, right? We need to start talking to them about this transformation that's happening in industry so that they can prepare for themselves. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's smart people out here that have already thinking about this. We don't gotta reinvent anything. We can just leverage what's out there, build it, put our own little secret sauce on it, because you know we gotta put our own secret sauce on stuff, and release it to our people. And then we've got to align, like I said, to these international frameworks, like the computer science framework that's already supported by things like the Global Computer Science Foundation. Think people like Intel, Microsoft have already bought in. They had their experts look at these frameworks. We can certainly do that. And then the last thing that we got to do is we've got to be bold and we got to take risks, and we got to figure out where are we going with this? What's the future of our education system? How are we going to change it? So be inspirational and know that we can implement, and we can start small. We don't have to go and try to conquer the world yet. We can start small, build our little beachhead up, and then go. Dr. Grace, where did Miss Gracie go? Okay, I'm looking for you in someplace else, and you're going to talk a little bit more about some opportunities for us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So the future is here. What are the opportunities? There will naturally be great improvement in productivity, and we, the consumer, will benefit. Things will become much cheaper and more affordable. Of course, there will be a number of jobs that will be created, mainly entrepreneurship, jobs created in the closet. Makes it much easier, well, no longer in the closet, on Instagram and wherever else at homes. So there are huge opportunities for our young people. But there will also be some challenges. Erica spoke about the lower level jobs. There are also some middle income jobs that, of course, we will find that they will actually go. There will be the change, there will be some kind of inequality as it relates to, you know, that on a construction site, the owners, the persons who are able to employ more persons, they are considered to be the powerful persons, but that is going to be shifted, which is really the owners of the capital and the skills that will become popular and not those who are able to employ. There will be great uncertainty. Businesses will really do not know how to plan, because while you're planning today, you would have done something that you think is groundbreaking. By tomorrow, it is obsolete. So it's going to become very difficult for planning to take place. There will be major adjustments that we will have to make as a people. The 3D printing, those of you who got a chance to see the smaller version here, and those who have not, I would encourage you to do so, because what it means is that you can now have a 3D printer at home, wherever, and you would have created your own little cottage industry, and you are getting your thing done, depending on what part may be needed for whatever kind of machine that is being prepared. Industry boundaries are going to become blurred. So you have Google, for example, is now into autonomous cars, and Tesla, which is a car company itself, is now switching its focus on perhaps energy. And so that is a major shift. You have to be thinking, remember I spoke about moonshot, you have to be thinking 10 times ahead and doing things at least in leaps and bounds, as our minister would say, leapfrog, and not incrementally. Interestingly, the way that we work will change significantly. P.S. I don't know how you're going to cope with us tracking us coming to work at 8 o'clock, because we can 8:30 and go until 5, because we can work anywhere, anytime, and still achieve even greater results. So all of that is going to change significantly. Businesses are going to be connected in different ways. You will have a number of freelancers and individual professionals who will just get their business up and running. And just to say to you, many of our high school students are doing that. They are creating their own businesses, and they are selling products on Instagram and wherever, and the young people are buying these. So things are changing significantly. Now, the sharing economy is going to be moving from one of ownership and towards service. And so there's a survey that I came across which speaks to a car spending 93% of its time idle. And I know my husband will agree, right, Dr. Cornwall? Because you drive the car to work, you get there at 7, and you park the car, and you leave at 8:30. 93% of the time for that day, The car is just there. And so in the future, you will find that car companies are going to be shifted from producing and selling cars to providing a service. So you are now able to go wherever you want to go, when you want to go there, and how you want to get there. So, ladies and gentlemen, how do we get ready? And Erica has given us some ideas as to how the education system can get ready. And my regional directors are here, PS, and just to say, Erica is given willingly to support the education system to work with us, yes, from the primary level, because that's where it has to start, from the early childhood, and assist us in developing. And so we brainstormed together about some ideas that we can put in place. First and foremost, as the child is born, the child is ready for the computer. They are able to hold maybe the mobile phone better than their bottles. And they know how to find whatever they want to find to make it work. So it's just the reality. And so we have to start from the primary level to create many different opportunities. She spoke about programming, and there are user-friendly ways of getting this implemented. We already know that CXC, for example, is moving fully online in 2019. And so we have started to outfit all our high schools through different means to have the technology available. And we have also started at the primary level as well. We now have to turn what is called scamming in Jamaica to something that is more attractive, where we teach our scammers to develop the competencies to be able to spot where there will be security threats and hacking, so we are able to be ahead of the game. So we have to now find a way to engage them from within our schools, because they are doing it right there, so they understand the techniques and they can get these going. Erica and myself spoke about what she calls a single idea that we could actually utilize within the education system to develop some kind of product or a business. We speak about a lot of time the Silicon Valley. Taiwan, for example, they invested in molds, and they started it from very early. They started to introduce the kids to how to create a mold, and that has become a mainstay, would have earned them millions of dollars. So we thought that perhaps, since Jamaica is such a lovely country full of sunshine, why not look to see how the sun could help us to create something that is revolutionary? That's just a thought that we are putting out there for us to develop on and see if we can get just a single idea for the entire education system to be working around that can benefit the entire country overall. We have to look at how we can bring up the lower level jobs. So we have to stop talking about entry level. And it's just entry level 5 CXC that they need. We have to move away from this to be able to create entrepreneurs and persons who can think and utilize and enhance the technical skills, the analytical skills, and the business skills that Erica spoke about to assist them in developing different products. Our colleges and universities will have to stop the overlapping. And that is why Dr. Cessa Cornwall is here this afternoon, because we are trying to make sure that we create a system. We have enough products and ideas and services that we can provide working together. And so, yes, Dr. Pinnock, there is a CMU that has a state-of-the-art 3D printing facility. They have a fact center that is being developed through support from us at the ministry, as well as the Ministry of Technology, Science and Technology. Other institutions should be able to utilize the technology there to enhance their students. And so while that is being done, the students here can also go to other institutions, Dr. Adams, to benefit from their expertise. So the overlapping has to stop. Can you start this video for me, please, sir? This is a little video. Erica spoke about augmented reality, and it's really how we teach in our classrooms. I think it's for about a few minutes, if it will play, that I want to show. It came from Google, actually, so it's not anything that is not available. And it's really how augmented reality is utilized in the classroom. Can it play? Will it play? And that's the second to last slide, actually.
We've been teaching human anatomy the same way for 100 years. Students get a cadaver, then they look at medical illustrations, and it's completely two-dimensional, and the human body isn't.
Microsoft HoloLens is a holographic computer that you wear. It enables you to bring your digital world into your real world.
At Case Western Reserve University, we are focused on solving problems and creating new knowledge.
My job is to teach, and I really think this could impact almost everything that we teach people. With HoloLens, you can see the muscles on top of the skeleton all at the same time. You can bring them in and out and exactly understand where things sit.
You can take any anatomical part and show any of it. You can move it around, you can make it kind of translucent so you can see through the outside, and that really helped me understand how cardiac anatomy worked. I actually had a moment where I found the aortic valve, and it was the first time that I'd actually seen the aortic valve in relation to all the other anatomical structures. It was a way of seeing it that you couldn't do with an actual heart.
I think this will improve students' confidence in learning anatomy dramatically.
By creating simulations with the HoloLens that lets them have an experience where they can fail, that would be the best way to learn, because we don't allow people to fail too much in real-life medicine.
With HoloLens, you could imagine having a class standing around a model, almost like a tour group in a museum, where they're all interacting completely naturally. I spend a huge amount of time to make sure they become the best professionals, because it's all of our jobs to make the world a better place.
Working with Case Western Reserve University to create this paradigm shift so that we can leap together with students into the future of education. We believe that HoloLens is going to enable us to do that.
We talked about being able to use it to teach art history. We have an anthropology department too that I think will enjoy this technology.
Anytime you change the way that you see things, it changes the way that you understand them. As soon as you can change somebody's understanding, then they can change the way they see the world.
That's the HoloLens, which of course is making teaching so easier. I don't know how many of you remember how when we had to draw the heart and remember. And I couldn't figure out how this heart works. And now you are able to see it right before you once we have the technology. So ladies and gentlemen, the charge to us as educators, we must rethink our systems and processes at work. And it means every single person here. Perhaps in the future, Maureen, we'll have to get some drones and do inspections and to get the information. And once you have the information, you analyze. There are endless possibilities that we see within our individual areas of work. Now, as senior educators, we have a responsibility to start commencing the implementation. We can't continue to hold on to what we have always done and the good old days. There are better days. And so we now have to tap into the resources. When Professor Pinnock told us about Erica, we knew about Erica long before she came. And he said he just had to hold on to her because she has a wealth of knowledge and experience and linkages and contacts that can help us. She told me that they're actually developing something for the agricultural sector. And so the center here has some really very good innovations that we need to move to ensure that we understand them and to get our persons to understand. And it doesn't mean that we have to wait on a bureaucratic structure. Information is power. Schools are run by boards and can take decisions and start preparing themselves. And so we now have to find a way to lead the rest of the country as it relates to the fourth industrial revolution. We have to keep abreast, keep ahead of the trends, and importantly, we have to link to the international industries and continue to inform our local industries as to where we are going in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Erica and myself, the fourth industrial revolution is here. Let us embrace it. This is what it is, and we must make sure that we are not left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. McLean and Mrs. Erica Simmons. Colleagues, you would agree with me that this was just excellent. Could you just give them another round of applause for me? This is just amazing. I sat there listening and I was totally impressed and also a little bit depressed when I hear about this singularity and these cobots and all of those things that are upon us. Colleagues, the world is indeed changing. We are seeing the paradigm shifts, movement from mass production to mass customization, and then from incremental to exponential, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, all of those things that my little 10-year-old is more aware of than I am. You know, what is going to happen to us if we do not get ourselves prepared? And the National College for Educational Leadership is so pleased to be able to bring this to our principals and to other individuals in Jamaica and across the world. Colleagues, we have to find ways to mobilize knowledge. Dr. McLean, 100% and wholly more impressed. Mrs. Erica Simmons, amazing. Professor, you have a gem, and I'm sure you know that. P.S., you know what's going on. It is just good stuff. And to know that the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, we are aware, we are leading, we are moonshotting and leapfrogging. We are there. Colleagues, this is good stuff. Our Director of Programs here at the National College for Educational Leadership, Mrs. Kadia Hilton-Fraser. Could you just join me, please, Mrs. Hilton-Fraser? She's our Director of Programs, and she will be leading the question and answer session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Ingleton, I don't know how I follow that because I'm in a similar situation. I also have a 10-year-old who is interested in aeronautical engineering, and getting him to study is a task, but he will spend hours with his Lego, reimagining and doing all manner of things in that room with his Lego toys. And I say to myself, oh my Lord, what am I going to do? I feel like, I should be, I'm almost worried, but then I realize that his thinking is leaps and bounds ahead of mine. And I'll give you another situation. He had a story to write, myself as a plant, and he chose the Venus flytrap. So I said to him, all right, Google it and look for some document. He said, document, mommy? I'm going to look for a video. That's more interesting. And I said, truly, because that will be more captivating for him. And really and truly, this demands a change in mindset. We can no longer feel like we're threatened, because if we don't jump on it, what's going to happen? We are going to essentially get left behind. And as both persons said, we have awesomely intelligent persons in Jamaica who are creative and innovative and indeed risk takers. So this is the opportune time for us to get on board, to get with it, or the Industrial Revolution will leave us. And I think the thing that I took most was this whole idea of the moonshotting, and even how the adjustments will be made in terms of our society. Because imagine, I don't have to spend 2 hours in traffic commuting to work. I can stay at home, get things done, be more productive, and still get things going. So it really does require this transformation. And I wanted us to add my own thanks for this fantastic presentation. I think it was certainly very current, and it spoke to every single aspect of what needs to change in our society. So at this moment, I'm really going to open up the floor to those persons who want to engage with Dr. McLean or Mrs. Simmons. This is the time. Let us feel our questions, comments at this moment. Do we have anyone who has something burning? I know that social media is on, so I'm going to connect with them shortly. But for anyone, the mics are around the room. Please, this is not the time for us to feel nervous. We have to engage in discussion. so we know where we're at and certainly where it is that we need to go. Somebody should be leapfrogging right now. All right, I have a hand at the back of the room. And when you stand, can you just identify yourself, please? And your organization. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Yvette Johnson, Caribbean Maritime University. Afternoon, Dr. McLean. It's a good time to ask this question because both you and Mr. Bernard are in the room. When will our secondary schools stop making IT an optional subject and ensure that all students are able to put this in their packet of subjects that they take to CSEC?
Good question. So that's a very good question you have asked, and we are on our way towards that. We are currently, I was reminding my team today, procuring, I think it's about 700 computers within this financial year, which is to complement the other about 1,000 computers that are currently being procured through the Overseas Examinations Commission, in addition to another 150 million worth that is being procured by the e-learning Jamaica to ensure that we have adequate number of computers within our high schools. Not only to remove IT from being optional, but to also prepare for online assessment, which one person will need to have a computer. We have also started the discussion, and I've started to procure too because thanks to PS and our minister, we now have an ICT budget about 311 million per year. And so we are now able to procure tablets and laptops to be provided within class sets. So it means that on carts, sets of tablets or laptops can go into the classroom, so we do not necessarily have to provide additional infrastructure for the use of the computers. So we are currently doing a survey to ascertain where we are in terms of the entire system, because outside of what I have just said, there are many alumni that are providing computers for different schools as well, and then it will tell us where the gap is to ensure that they are fully outfitted. In addition to that, we have now started, we started from 2016 to provide tablets for the primary schools as well. We have 762 primary schools, so it's going to take, unless there's a major capital injection, it's going to take some time for them to be fully outfitted. But if Nadine Sims, if she was here, she would have said to you that we have worked out a scientific approach where they use the tablets for 1/5 of the timetabled time within the schools, or 20%, and so that will ensure that the students will all have access. The truth is, PS, the bring your own device policy, Boyd, which we are pushing to be completed on time for September, because what it means is that our students will now be able to utilize devices that many of them have at homes, and we enable the system utilize their smartphones for the teaching learning process. So with that policy implemented, then we will see an increase with the number of students who will be able to have access. And so as Erica spoke, what we now have to do is to focus on the teacher training, and strangely, PS, through the JTA, there is a plan afoot for each teacher to be provided with a tablet, which means that they will now be able to utilize this tool in the teaching learning process. So we are not there yet, but we are working towards getting there.
Thank you so much, Dr. McLean. I have a question over here.
Cecil Cornwall. I guess I wear many hats. I must say it was a great presentation. Thanks for having me. You know, it's rather interesting because just yesterday I was watching CNN, and they're saying that the greatest threat that the world faces is not ground war or air war, is really the space war. Because it is said that as the information moves so fast, and the production of the whole technology, we're getting so technologically savvy. In a sense, the world or the superpowers of the world is never prepared for this protection of cyberspace, as China is currently testing how they can blow up the US and other satellites that control all we're speaking about, which could just collapse the world, because as we become so connected, as we and the focus, whether it's on North Korea, that's not really the real threat. The real threat is because how connected and smaller we are become, that we're not protecting our satellite, which controls all this rapid development. And right now I know that there is a concern now as to how. I know America is looking, how are we going to protect that? Because it was never a thought, it was never in the process that, the world is so interconnected, and if you blow up those satellites by the tests that China has been carrying out, then of course the world collapses.
I just comment on that. That's a great point, and it is actually speaking towards, remember, the ethical implications of technology and what we are going to do in the future. Are we going to use this technology for good, or will it fall into the hands of people that would want to cause us harm? So it's an inflection point, as I talked about, that we're all going to have to think about, what do we want to be when we grow up? How will we handle this technology? Because as it is going to be doing a lot of good in the world, it could also do a lot of harm to our world.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Powerful presentation. My name is Dave Muir from the Caribbean Maritime University. I just wanted to say first things that, yes, I'm very excited to be here. A lot is happening. The Ministry of Education, CMU, powerful. World Skills is coming up. You're preparing students to go in mobile robotics, in mechatronics, very, very visionary areas. That's the technologies that we are seeing right here. My comments that I would want to actually make in the presentation that you did on the data science skill set, when we're looking at that K-12 computer science framework, under the tech savvy area, I think that one of the additions that we could consider as we refine these frameworks for ourselves is that we have to look seriously in the whole area of sensor technologies as well. We have to pay a closer look as to how it is that we actually get, for example, this data. And then once we get the data, of course, we can be using it to monitor or in control, for example, applications. Another thing, again, that I also wanted to point out, as I look around the room, etc., is that you see this whole concept of automation, right? It's here. What it is that we're doing is that we're taking it to another level. And I want, in terms of the public education, that when we speak to people about automation, I mean, a simple thing like air conditioner right here is an example of an automated piece of equipment that is keeping us at a temperature that we want it to be, right? So it's not like it's a whole, new thing. There are things that we have been doing already that is really relevant in the areas of actuator technologies, sensor technologies, etc. So I want us now to, as we present these frameworks, to really close that loop. And again, as I salute the ministry for its STEM infusion, etc., because these are the things that brings it home and connects it to everyday life. So I salute the work that's happening, and I thank you.
Thanks,
so
Dave.
much. Dave's actually one of our Jamaican, technologists from the great institute of Georgia Institute of Technology. He's an automation, PhD in automation. So he's definitely also an expert that we can tap into here from the university. Dr. Dave Muir.
Yes. Thank you. Professor Pinnock.
Well, thank you very much. Just want to commend again, both ladies, absolutely amazing.
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just again, we're linking everything else. The only sector that is trailing everything is the educational sector, believe it or not. It's a sector that's left behind because we overanalyze till we paralyze. So I'm just saying to us that What I'd like to see, and this is just a call, that we need to connect together. I'm looking now at CMU just to say to us, and I've been reaching out, not getting much traction. We have over $1.4 billion worth of technological investment on the ground right now. And I'm saying it's difficult for a high school to put that in. This is open for the summer. How can we connect? And I'm saying for the summer, we have teachers who are teaching and you're showing them probably just a little video. That is not enough to do transformative technologies. We have people like Erica who is here. We can connect together. I would hate this summer to pass and we waste it. This is what I'm saying. One of the projects we have to, and we need to even make this a priority, PS. We are adopting the Port Royal Basic School. And come September, they'll be in our uniform. They'll be converted to a STEM basic school. And will be adopted. So we can do more of this. I just want to say that.
All right, I see the leapfrogging taking place. I have some
just
comments.
one comment, please.
I'm sorry, Dr. Mike.
Professor Pinnock, the team is here. Mr. Bennett. Note carefully, Dr. Benjamin. I'm not seeing Mrs. Berry. We spoke about the programs today. I'm not seeing Priscilla. I'm not sure if she's here. We have been invited. We were told before. We have to tap in on the opportunities because the future is right now. So the right persons are here, listening to Dr. Davian and listening to Erica, and so we have to establish the linkages and ensure that we put things in place. And PSI will tell you, our teachers will appreciate it. They're hungry out there for the knowledge and for the support that is required. And of course, as I indicated today, Dr. Winsome Gordon, in terms of the coordination. So this is something that we need to establish the linkages before we leave here this afternoon for this summer that is coming up.
Oh, could I just add just really quickly, we should definitely salute Professor Fritz Pinnock, the president of our university here at CMU, for his leadership and guidance. When he talked about the $1.5 billion in technological investment we've made here, we have the state-of-the-art industrial automation training facility in the world here on our campus. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that take vision and foresight to be able to bring something like that to our country? I mean, I'm just very proud of Fritz. It's my honor to be here with him and with you all to contribute in my small part. But it does take leaders. It takes leaders like Dr. Pinnock, like Dr. Grace, to be able to affect this change. So I wanted to just salute you for everything that you've done and your vision, Dr. Pinnock, for bringing this technology here to our island.
Awesome, and just in agreement with everything that you have said, we have Alex Singh connecting with us from Brussels, and he said that in order to get our students to start dreaming and thinking up exciting ways to apply new technologies, they first must have access to it. Thus, measures should be taken to improve access to information, such as lowering the cost of internet access, access to computers and software. Furthermore, government should take the lead, such as lowering import duties and sale tax on technologies. So that's Alex Singh from Brussels.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ingleton. And I have a comment or question to my left.
So, good evening, everybody. I must say it's a wonderful presentation by Dr. Grace McLean and Mrs. Erica Simmons. But my question to you, Ms. Erica Simmons, I just wanted to really expound on how will the drive in the digital connected world will help us in fulfilling and understanding the concept that is really expressed by Dr. Andrew Wheatley, as we call it, smart cities.
Smart cities. I love this topic because especially if we think about our schools as small cities, right? I've been talking to Dr. Pinnock and Mr. McLean about this concept of a smart connected campus, right? And we're going to hopefully implement it here. So how do we look at automation in buildings, right? Lights on and off. A building that's able to recognize your presence within the room, right? We want to do that. The technology is here. In terms of our campus, everybody, all the students that are moving around campus, they're just like citizens living in a city. So we want to start collecting information about people. Where are they going? What are they doing while they're here on campus, so that we can use that to improve the customer experience here on campus. We want to use technologies that are related to the Internet of Things to be able to help with our security, right? So that we can have cameras that are looking at our campus at all angles, and we can be able to put forth that information to make sure that the participants in this mini city are secure. I think a smart connected campus, we should be thinking about that is in as many campuses as possible, right? And when you have a smart connected campus, you're going to be having efficiencies in the use of energy. You're going to have efficiencies in the use of water. You're going to have efficiencies, obviously, in the way that we share information and in the knowledge that we're collecting about people in these smart cities. So I love the concept of a smart campus, a smart connected city, and hopefully, and knowing Dr. Pinnock, I think we'll be the first campus in this island to have a smart connected campus.
Good afternoon. I'm Casey Akar, CEO of the National Parenting Support Commission. Dr. McLean, Mrs. Simmons, thank you so much. Brilliant presentations. I too felt and continue to feel very excited, but also have the heebie-jeebies, truth be told. But there's something I wanted to pick up on. Dr. McLean, one of the statements you made that stood out for me was the one, we don't have to wait on a bureaucratic structure. That one stood out for me, but at the same time, when the question was asked about our high schools and getting IT, in your response, you did mention the fact that we had several computers waiting and we're going through the procurement processes. And what I want to know is, how are we going to ensure that we're moonshotting and not get shot, no pun intended, because of the bureaucratic structures that we still have to, we're a part of. As I sat here, I was trying to look at how am I going to apply all this information to my agency so that I can start equipping parents and getting them sensitized and so on. But even in that space, I'm already thinking of, okay, for me to engage parents and to pull them in, sometimes I have to find space. And that's at a cost, and that means going through procurement processes, and that's delaying. Whereas, and then the world is leaving me behind. And so I feel the urgency, but I also sometimes real seriously feel tied by the bureaucracy. How are we going to ensure that we're not left behind when we're tied up in this system?
So I'll make a statement, then I will give you an example. Sometimes the directors are here, so they know what we're talking about. Sometimes our primary schools, for example, they want to start looking at, let's say, the K-12 strategy that Erica presented, in terms of just starting using Legos, for example, and starting with Python and so on to get our students sensitized. They feel like if they do these things, they are going to be castigated by our education officers, or they will not get permission to implement. I am saying these are basic things within their control that they can start right within their classrooms to sensitize our students. So that's what I mean. Instead of you waiting now for the general system to say, okay, it's now Python time, and we are going to send you these little kits, and you're going to start introducing this kind of program, there are things that they can start. As it relates now, and I'll use CMU as an example. In 2002, when I had the opportunity of going to Switzerland, my husband went with me because I was so afraid to travel by myself, and we came across automation. And we saw the robots playing balls and doing all kinds of things. It was so amazing when we saw the things that were being done in mechatronics and robotics in a world skills competition. And we came back and started to talk to Dr. Pinnock. I'm not even sure how we started the discussion. And this institution has had, nobody understood the vision. As a matter of fact, I was working at Hart at the time, and when I went back, not even Hart understood the vision. And Dr. Pinnock took it up and decided that it is going to happen. And in 2000, that was 2002, in 2010, we were able to, through our minister at the time, who is Prime Minister now, get the team from Germany to come to Jamaica and did a one-week training session, and they were introduced to the CMU people. And 8 years after, we now have the largest fact center on this side of the world, Latin America and the world, in Jamaica. Now, I recall they went through the procurement process and it was aborted more than once. Dr. Pinnock said he did about 94 proposals. He may have done 94 times 2 because it took a lot. But he never gave up. Because at the same time, and that is why as we plan forward, we are going to have a challenge in terms of really how we structure what we do, but accountability, fiduciary responsibility, that's still very, very important, or we'll go to prison. PS, heading the team, marching into prison. And I can tell you, from my tour of the prison when I was training to be a justice, I would not wish my worst enemy to have to go into there. And I hear that down at the one downtown, they have a Pegasus side and a whatever side, but it is no better than the main side. So we still have to make sure that we do not breach the laws of the land, because in a singular world, whatever that is going to look like when it comes, there are still laws and rules that will allow for an orderly society. Absolutely. Or everybody will be doing everything and creating confusion. So we still have to find a way to see how we can work that. But there are some things that can be done now, and that is why I'm encouraging my colleagues. Sometimes you're a little timid to leapfrog. We have to now start to try to develop those skills to get our young people especially to utilize the technology more and to present to you the ideas and to get them to maximize their potential, some ideas that they have and some things that they are able to do. I could not do it in a lifetime. You tell them any foolishness and they are able to create something for you. And so we are from a different age. Many of us, we are from a different age. But the young people are able to do things 20 times faster. I was sharing this example, PS, with my husband. When we had a caretaker at the ministry and you need a screw or a little bolt, it takes like a month because he comes, he looks at it, and then he says he has to call the gentleman to come and inspect it, and then he says he has to get a purchase order, and then he says there is no money, and then nobody to sign the purchase order. And we now have a young man, maybe the age of my daughter. And I called him and he came immediately with his tool pan. And he inspected and then he fixed. He put in the screw. The screw didn't even look like it's not a normal screw. And then when he was finished, he said that I am going to tighten the other one because you may have the same problem as the handle of the chair. And in less than half an hour, he was out of the office. And I said to my office, what a transition. And I also said, in another 10 years' time, the other set of young people will say, take a picture and send it to me, and it perhaps will be fixed in 2 minutes or less. Yeah, so really that's the kind of the revolution that is taking place. So while we obey the rules and we remain accountable, we now have to make sure that we start doing the things that can point us into that direction, as Doc says about automation. Okay. Yes. No limit begging. Yes.
All right, I just had Mary Smorey just one last comment before I turn over to Dr. Ingerton.
Good evening. Just want to thank Dr. McLean and Mrs. Simmons for a very thought-provoking and very stimulating presentation. Dr. McLean spoke about the Internet of Things, and I am just thinking that we probably need also to look at the Internet of People. We want to, I think it's very important that we engage all the key stakeholders at the school level. And as I speak from the position of the National Council on Education, which is responsible for appointing school boards or nominating for appointment to our school boards, please let us not leave our school board chairmen and members behind, because they have responsibility for leading this change. And so as we think about the Internet of Things, let us talk about the Internet of People. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Flores? Yes.
I think it would be very sad if I were to keep silent, knowing that there is a national standards curriculum. Now, what I would like to bring to the fore is the fact that this curriculum is also promoting the development of our learners relative to attitudes and values. If we're not careful, we find that a lot of the emphasis is on the development of the technical competencies and those technical skills. But when it comes to moral intelligence, ethical intelligence, nothing is happening. How can we provide the support to the system in terms of helping to guide our teachers relative to the area of development of those values? The curriculum has, for example, religious education as an area of focus, health and family life as an area of focus, and we're finding that these are oftentimes neglected areas. How do we deal with that?
Okay, so that is a great question, and again, it speaks to the whole sociological, psychological part of things. And I think we're going to have education programs in place for us to think about how we're going to deal with technology. Remember on the slide there was a number 5 point on there that talked about the psychology of technology, right? So we are going to have to start thinking about the ethical implications, the psychological implications of technology, and making sure that we can develop our competence and our smarts in that area. So I definitely think that whole side of it, the people aspect, the change management side of what needs to happen is an important dimension of this. And if I have not mentioned that and I've focused on the technology, I want to definitely apologize to you. I am always thinking about the social implications of the technology. I know that we can use it for good. I know that we need to educate ourselves from an emotional perspective, what's going to happen in the future, how we can leverage the technology. And it's all about learning, all about perspective and knowledge and information. So I'm not sure how you would add it to your curriculum, but I definitely think it is an area, the technological the implications of technology, it really needs to be taught as well.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, that's where we're certainly at our peak. 2 seconds, Mrs. Dwyer.
You guys get to come back.
You can't help it.
You get to come back. This isn't it. This is not it. You'll be seeing us again. So I hope we can continue this conversation. This is part one. Yeah.
Okay. So I should go ahead?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm Maureen Dwyer from the Inspectorate, National Education Inspectorate. Since you spoke about the implications, I couldn't help but bring up the fact of the tensions between the lexicon. When these children speak and when the teachers listen and when I listen, sometimes we're on 2 different pages, but it's not wrong and right. It's just the way things are changing, and there's this thing that's pushing in the background that sometimes we ignore. How do we bridge that divide, or should we keep it in mind as we plan to organize for our teachers to cross the divide to help our children move into the future?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the children to help the teachers. And remember, we're dealing with all these generations now, right? We've got the millennials, the Generation Z, all of these peoples that have different value systems and things that are important to them. So it's something that we're going to have to pay very close attention to and make sure that we are communicating with a language that we can all understand.
Thank you. Mrs. Dwyer for that. Thank you, Dr. Flowers. And thank you, Dr. McLean and Mrs. Erica Simmons. Could we just give them a round of applause again? Thank you so much, Mrs. Hilton Fraser, for leading the question and answer session. We are at the end. We do have some individuals online, and those questions will come in, and I'll just ask Dr. McLean to respond to them, and we'll type them and send them through. It's the way that we're moving now. Indeed, today was excellent. I cannot part one. So we have to think about another session to ensure that we really get into a deep dive of what's happening with the fourth industrial revolution. But I must say that I have to tell you about all the moonshotting and leapfrogging taking place at the National College for Educational Leadership. So other than our leadership development webinar series, we have so many things happening. We have our NCEL blog, that we have individuals who are in the system who are writing about the moonshotting that's happening in their various agencies, and we're seeing those going out to our principals and to our other executives, and people from outside are really reading and commenting to say that really they're getting to see what's happening in the ministry. We just blasted Dr. Plunkett's blog, Growing Early STEM Talent. It's excellent and imperative for increasing tertiary STEM enrollment. We have coming up the blog for Dr. Hamilton Flowers, which will speak about constructivism in the classroom. We will be featuring Mr. Milbert Miller, NCEL trained, a coach at NCEL. He's now at Sydney Pagan Agricultural High, and he's doing great things. You're going to be hearing about all that he's doing. And the principal's voice that we'll be launching in September will feature all those principals who are doing really great things in their schools. You're going to be seeing innovations across the Caribbean. Colleagues, we are indeed leapfrogging. Could we get a round of applause? Thank you. Yes. Outstanding. And we are indeed grateful for the support, because the college survives based on its partnership, its connectivity. We are connected with every single department in the ministry, every single agency. We have support from JTC. We have our beloved Miss Dwyer, who's always there, NCE, Miss Mary Small. We have all the regional directors. I'm seeing Dr. Troop in the room. I'm not seeing any. I'm seeing Mrs. Ralston. We have Miss Brim. They all interviewed, and the staff at NCEL, they're saying, Dr. Ingleton, if you ever know some of the things going on in the region, when you read these interviews, it's just amazing. Colleagues, we are pleased, we are partnering, we are collaborating, and we are moonshotting. Thank you so very much. We have provided for you. We have refreshment at the back. Please enjoy yourself. Please network. Please eat and just relax and take the evening off. Go home a little late tonight. And from the NCEL staff, I cannot leave PS. I have to speak about the NCEL staff. There are people here. Mr. Neil, show your face, please. Mr. Neil will be leading the social media after this. He'll be interviewing people live on Facebook. Mr. Colin Bailey, our graphic artist. We have Mrs. Raquel Hyman Mitchell, show yourself, our accounting manager. We have a new member of staff, Mr. Jamie Russell. Where's Jamie? Come, Jamie, show yourself. We have Ashima Rankin, who is our records officer. Tamaine Lumley. Is everybody here? Sultana Hemans, Monique Kelly. Who am I missing? Monique Muir, Mr. Troy McKitty, and my daughter, 10-year-old Sarah, they're peeping, hiding there. So, colleagues, yes, she's right. She's a part of NCEL. And so we have a great staff, and we are who we are because of the strength of our team. Thank you so very much, colleagues. Tuning out from the National College for Educational Leadership and the Caribbean Maritime University. See you next time. The next topic is financial leadership, and you better watch out to see who that presenter will be. Thank you.